Thanks for letting me participate from a distance here today. I want to just take a couple of minutes to talk about developing Knowledge Commons works with the aim of providing a home for global scholarship. So Knowledge Commons works is basically Invenio RDM, which is the same platform that runs Zenodo, with mods. And we've done a lot of modification and extension of it. But in doing that, one of our primary goals has been thinking about how can we provide a platform that isn't so North Atlantic centric and isn't so English centric, a platform that feels like home to a whole range of global research communities. And that means being fairly deliberate about decentering the North Atlantic cultural world and decentering English. We have over actually 80 languages represented already in deposits in KCWorks. And just as an example, 10.7% of our deposits are in Spanish. And we have quite a bit of participation in the network from the Latin American world. But doing this obviously involves a lot of challenges because most of the infrastructure that we're used to is not really built to be home to a diverse community. And so we're in the early stages of figuring out how do we do this. But I want to share a little bit of the strategies and the challenges that we've been facing and thinking about. One is just translating the UI. And here, Invenio RDM comes with pretty robust translation abilities. But we discovered that when you customize a user interface, you end up having to translate your custom interface. So even in the process of making the UI more usable for people, more flexible, we've actually made the task of translation bigger for ourselves. And that's an ongoing effort. But beyond just translating labels on forms and things like that, one of the things that we have been wrestling with is name conventions. How do we handle people's names flexibly so that different naming conventions from around the world are honored equally? And that's challenging when we have other software, the data site metadata schema, bibliographic software like Zotero, that have built into them these two-field first name, last name kind of data structures. So we've started by developing a flexible and extensible model for just storing name data, not as first name, last name, but as an array of a variety of different kinds of name parts. And the next step, which is still in process, is for us to develop a user interface widget where people can enter their name in a flexible way instead of just being presented with two fields and forced to figure out how do I shoehorn my naming convention into that framework. Another issue that we're grappling with is search. So when we come to search for works in Knowledge Commons works, how do we let people search in their own language? How do we let people search and find results across different languages? And the first step for this that we're working on is just extracting the full text of deposits from PDFs, from Word documents, from slides, all of that sort of thing, in a whole wide variety of languages. So once we then have that full text, what we can do is develop cross-language semantic searching for deposits. And this is made possible by recent advances in multilingual large language models that let us take all of the deposits and convert them into vector representations of their meaning, and then compare those vector representations in one multilingual vector space. What that then lets us do is have people type in a search string in their own language and be presented with results that cross the language spectrum without having to try and operate in English and without being limited in terms of only getting what somebody thought to attach the right subject heading to. As important as subject headings are, This may be complemented as we move forward in developing this. This cross-language modeling may be complemented by a parallel process of taking people's search queries, translating them automatically into English, and then using those as the basis for vector comparison of deposits. But all of this is really with the aim of making people able to come and search natively in their own language instead of having to operate in English. Another, in many ways, larger issue is around subject headings, as Bonnie was talking about briefly. And the issue here is just that our subject headings are a long list of subject terms in English. So how do we make the repository home for a diverse research community when our subject index is a list of English terms? And here again, one initial step that we can take is to work on providing the same kind of semantic cross-language search for subject headings, so that at least people can search in their own language and have suggested for them subject headings in our vocabulary that they might have difficulty finding on their own. We're also working toward having automated suggestion of subject headings when somebody uploads their material and we extract the full text from it. But in the future, there are some possibilities that are really exciting that we're thinking about. Things like, can we use some of these same multilingual large language models to help us align multiple subject vocabularies across different languages so that people could actually use subject headings from a language that's more familiar to them? And even beyond that, we're hoping that we'll be able to move less and less into a dependence on fixed subject headings and more toward building a knowledge graph, an abstract model of all of the interrelated semantic connections between the deposits in the repository, and finding ways to let people explore those and find clusters in that network naturally. But we're relying a lot on LLMs here, on large language models. And there are some issues that we need to be keeping in mind as we rely on tools like this to help us make a global community feel at home. We need to be careful not to track individual users' behavior, in part because that can be dangerous for some users, depending on what kind of political context they come from. We don't want to be storing information that could be problematic for them if a government came and tried to get information from us, or if, God forbid, we were hacked. We also want to, as much as possible, run these models on our own servers without sending data out to OpenAI or Claude or any of these external services, so that we're not helping to train public models on the data of researchers that deposit with us, and just so that we can maintain some integrity. And we're not selling people's data. We're not licensing people's data. We're just using it to serve them within the community. But there are also larger questions that we're going to have to be thinking about the implicit ontologies that are built into large language models themselves. These, as we know, aren't neutral entities. They have biases. And when we're beginning to rely on them for things like cross-language searching and subject identification, trying to, as much as possible, do things like fine-tuning the models on our own collection data so that we can try to mitigate the implicit ontological assumptions that are built into these models. We're not just thinking about language, though. We're also thinking about things like decentering the dominant social networks that tend, again, to be centered around the North Atlantic academic world, around North Atlantic academic institutions. How do we make a meeting point where social networks and social circles can intersect, kind of like a watering hole? And this is a matter of trying to create those intersection points in communication when we know that we are kind of a natural meeting point, when people from all kinds of different backgrounds and circles are coming and viewing the same deposits, viewing the same actual research products on KCWorks. So we can do things like linking collections of works on the repository to social groups in the Knowledge Commons network more widely. And that lets people discover social connections through those groups. Allowing people moving forward to direct message creators on the KC platform, on the Knowledge Commons platform, so that there can be direct communication between people who might not ever overlap in their social circles, ever be at the same conferences. And in the future, we're trying to reflect on how we could offer some kind of discussion in place on the detail page for KCWorks deposits, so that when you come and you view it, you could also see a global conversation about that work. Now, obviously, the problem here is, how do we prevent it from becoming just a troll fest? And how do we moderate it without the overhead of that moderation becoming unwieldy? And so we're trying to think about what models have worked. Not so much YouTube or Facebook, but more things like Stack Exchange in the software world, where there is quite a bit of user self-moderation and reputation systems and all of that sort of thing. But at this point, that part is really just in the what if stage, and we're trying to figure out what kind of models could we work toward. This is just a very quick sketch of the kinds of things that we're facing when we try to think about how to build a platform that is going to feel like home and function really, truly as a home for people from all around the global community. And it also gives you a sense of the technical challenges that we're facing and why it takes time to develop these things. But it's an exciting time to be working too, because some of these things like multilingual AI models are giving us tools that make this possible in ways that would have been really prohibitive in the past. Thanks. And I will pass things on to the next presenter.